September 2022, Ecuador. A night at a training academy for law enforcement officers, a place meant for preparation and discipline, had always been quiet. The facility sat atop a hill, with duty posts assigned in advance, and guards sworn to report any sign of trouble. But on that evening, the usual calm was shattered by a piercing scream coming from one of the dorm buildings. Moments later, it happened again, shorter this time, but with unmistakable desperation in the voice. A few people lodging in nearby rooms were able to pinpoint the direction of the sound, yet none of them left their quarters. There were no calls to emergency services. I can't quite understand why such an obvious sign of distress didn't trigger an immediate response. That thought becomes unavoidable when you dig into the facts. When the shouting abruptly stopped, the atmosphere seemed to settle back into silence. No reports were filed and the doors remained closed. Only later would it emerge that one person quietly left the compound without explanation, and another simply vanished. That's when a chain of events began, a chain that soon would turn into a nationally significant investigation. Hey everyone! Before we dig into today's story, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, and drop a comment below. I put a lot of effort into bringing you real, true crime stories from around the world. Only authentic cases here. Your support really helps the channel grow, and I truly appreciate every interaction. After those night calls for help went unanswered, it's worth taking a closer look at how the system inside which these events unfolded was supposed to work. The setting was the Police Academy of Ecuador, a place to train future officers for high-risk situations, teach them to respond to threats, and instill strict discipline. The academy was promoted as a secure environment, largely thanks to rigid protocols designed to eliminate unexpected incidents. At the core of the control system was a strict access protocol. Every entry and exit was logged, and all movements were recorded in a registry. These rules applied to everyone on site, even family members of staff. The purpose was full control over who came and went inside the facility. It seems important to emphasize that these protocols were quite detailed. Besides the gated entry system, there were internal night shifts. Night watch posts were supposed to respond to any unusual activity, loud noises, unusual commotion, unscheduled movement. The academy had security cameras and guards on duty, and a tight chain of command to relay orders quickly. In theory, these elements together should have ensured complete control over the grounds. But in practice, official procedures were not always followed. Cadets who heard the screams were technically obligated to step into the hallway and assess the situation. Yet chain of command and fear of overstepping boundaries prevailed. For lower-ranking cadets, breaking protocol without explicit orders could lead to disciplinary punishment, so many chose to stay put. As a result, neither the entry protocols nor the internal checks nor the on-site security responded as they should have. The system built to ensure safety failed, not because of technology or infrastructure, but because of inaction. It was human error that broke the chain. Into this very institution, where rules were supposed to mean protection, a woman walked late one evening. She went through the front gate by the book, passing security in a formal and approved manner. But beyond that point, oversight became lax, and that gave the situation room to unfold, without anyone stepping in. Despite the supposed safeguards the academy was meant to provide, it was Maria Belén Bernal who found herself vulnerable that night. A well-known attorney from Quito, Maria had built her reputation in Ecuador by representing women in cases involving threats, pressure, and aggressive behavior in domestic settings. She'd handled dozens of these cases, often the kind that rarely made headlines but required serious legal expertise. Maria knew how to work with evidence, build a defense, and stand firm in situations where many others would back down. Outside the courtroom, Maria had become a voice for those who felt unheard. Through her TikTok channel, she broke down legal procedures in plain terms, helping survivors understand their rights and navigate real-world threats. Her videos regularly circulated through women's communities, especially among those looking for support. What made Maria stand out wasn't just her skill. It was her willingness to take on the most difficult, emotionally charged cases. Her visibility made her a trusted figure in spaces where silence was the norm. At home, Maria led a life filled with responsibilities. She was raising her 13-year-old son, Mike, doing everything she could to give him stability and emotional support. The family was also caring for Maria's elderly grandmother, who needed ongoing attention and care. Despite a packed professional schedule, Maria managed most of the household responsibilities herself, trying to balance both worlds without letting either fall apart. Her colleagues described her as reliable, a pro who could stay objective even in emotionally intense cases. Friends said she was someone who didn't flinch in the face of difficulty, someone who always saw things through to the end. In the legal world, she was respected for her principles. In her personal life, she was admired for her strength and warmth. Leading up to her disappearance, there were no signs that Maria was under unusual stress or that she had let her guard down. She understood the law enforcement system. She knew how it operated and where the weak spots were. She also knew the risks that came with asking for help in the wrong place at the wrong time. But even her experience couldn't shield her from what happened the night she entered that academy, a place that, by its very design, should have guaranteed her safety. To understand how Maria ended up inside those walls that night, we have to look at one key figure, someone whose authority on that campus extended beyond the norm. That man was Lieutenant Germán Fernando Cáceres, a police officer and instructor in Ecuador's national force. He lived on the academy grounds, taught physical training, and was trusted by the administration as someone capable of maintaining order. Someone seen as reliable, disciplined, and in control. On duty, Germán carried real weight. His position didn't just give him the title of instructor, it gave him genuine influence over everyone training under him. For the cadets, he was a superior officer whose approval affected their evaluations, their clearances, and their future recommendations. In a closed structure like that, a man in his position naturally built an aura of authority and unquestioned obedience around himself, making his behavior almost impossible for subordinates to challenge. But the professional side of his life coexisted with another one, a side absent from any official file. During his time at the academy, he became involved with a cadet named Jocelyn Bilko. A relationship between an instructor and a cadet violated internal regulations and could have led to disciplinary consequences, so Germán kept it hidden. This wasn't just a personal matter. It presented a clear conflict of interest, a man with power entering a relationship with someone formerly dependent on his decisions. What concerns me most is that this combination, institutional authority and secret personal ties, created the perfect conditions for abuse of power. And later, this would become a key element in the investigation. That duality, a trusted officer on one hand, a rule breaker on the other, turned out to be one of the central components of everything that followed. To Maria, Germán was first and foremost her husband, someone she believed to be reliable. But inside the academy, he was a far more complicated figure. His official biography painted him as a disciplined officer, while the hidden part of his life was building tension that would erupt the night of the incident. September 10th, 2022 became the starting point for a chain of problems. Germán received permission to leave the academy for a match, but instead, he went to a cadets party. Alcohol, the loss of control that came with it, and his contact with Jocelyn Bilko led him to miss his assigned shift. Strangely, no one reported it. The officers on duty didn't log his absence. When he finally returned to the academy, the motorcycle carrying him and Jocelyn was involved in a minor accident at the gate. Security saw what happened, but didn't file a report or ask for explanations. The officer walked back onto the grounds without any inspection, even though he was required to account for missing his shift and for the condition he returned in. This, in my view, is where the main problem becomes painfully clear. Complete lack of reaction to even the most obvious violations. What followed unfolded in an environment of total absence of oversight. No one recorded the missed shift, the accident, or the officer's involvement with the cadet. And every one of these ignored incidents became a link in the chain leading to what happened just hours later. After a day filled with overlooked violations, Maria entered the academy grounds. She came to meet her husband, and her arrival became the last movement properly logged in the access records. The guard allowed her through without hesitation. The status of being an officer's spouse meant she could enter without additional checks. On paper, it looked like a routine visit, but with the rule-breaking already piling up, her entry marked the beginning of the crucial timeline. According to procedure, her movements should have been recorded, entrance noted in the log, and exit noted as well. But there was never a record of Maria leaving the academy. This is a critical point because the missing exit entry rule out the possibility that she officially walked out. And it raises a question I can't ignore. Why didn't the duty officer report the missing exit log when several hours had passed? It is known that Maria walked to the residential building where Germain's quarters were located. That movement could have been noticed by staff members on duty, the guard at the gate, officers stationed near the buildings, and those who saw her approaching the building. Her arrival time was logged, but nothing else was officially recorded about her subsequent actions. A system, one where every step was supposed to be under surveillance, ceased doing what it was built to do. Maria entered correctly, yet no safety mechanism tracked that she never left. This discrepancy became one of the first signs that a serious breakdown had occurred inside the academy. From the moment Maria stepped into the residential building, what happened next is known only through the accounts of cadets who inadvertently became witnesses and what they observed or heard. Late that night, several heard heated arguments coming from the officer's room. One witness mentioned a scream so clear and sharp it didn't resemble ordinary noise. Others heard loud thuds, but assumed it was just a disciplinary talk between ranks. Nothing worth intervening. Within the academy, such episodes were frequently attributed to senior officers reprimanding subordinates, so younger cadets preferred not to get involved. Later that evening, one cadet saw someone carrying a rolled-up object, like a blanket or cover. The movement tense and hurried as it came down a stairwell. He couldn't tell exactly what was inside, but the way it was carried looked urgent. That observation later became a crucial piece in reconstructing events. I still wonder, why didn't the cadet who witnessed that transport report it to the watch officer? There are accountings of someone asking for flashlights, as though the officer wanted to inspect something in the room or hallway. Several people heard him ask for a pair of scissors. Those requests sounded odd for late at night, yet no one asked why. Given the strict chain of command, cadets preferred to obey the seniors' demands rather than question their necessity. By morning, some witnesses recalled hearing intimate sounds coming from that same room. At the time, none considered it suspicious. Many residents knew about unofficial relationships between officers and cadets, even though such relationships violated academy regulations. Each incident on its own could have been written off as minor. But together, they painted a disturbing picture. On the night Maria disappeared, there were multiple occasions when checks should have been carried out. Yet, in a system where any initiative from a lower-ranking cadet was viewed as a breach of hierarchy, taking action was effectively suppressed. The fear of overstepping authority proved stronger than the obligation to respond to signs of possible danger. After that night, a night when nobody responded to screams for help, events shifted into the phase of explanations. The first move was made by Germain. The next morning, he called Maria's mother and claimed that his wife had disappeared. According to him, they had been driving together through Quito, then stopped, and Maria stepped out of the car to get some fresh air, after which she never returned. That version raised immediate questions. The location he gave didn't match the direction of her expected route, and he offered no explanation for why he failed to contact the rescue service immediately. Germain's subsequent actions only deepened doubts. When relatives requested a search of his room at the academy, he initially agreed, then suddenly tried to halt the procedure, citing fatigue and asking to postpone the inspection. At that moment, it became painfully obvious. His behavior did not match that of someone truly concerned about a missing spouse. In my view, that abrupt shift indicated an attempt to buy time, possibly to hide evidence or prepare an escape. During questioning, Germain repeated his story, that Maria walked away on her own and never came back. But investigators noted inconsistencies. He mixed up times, gave a shaky description of the route, and couldn't explain why his phone was turned off at key moments. Those contradictions made his version even less believable. After his first interrogation, Germain walked out of the station and never came back. At that point, law enforcement hadn't yet filed any restrictions against him. That gap gave him the chance to disappear, and that's exactly how his 3-month run from the law began. A chapter that would later become central to the investigation. Even before any charges were brought, Germain was already behaving like someone preparing a defense, dodging questions, giving vague answers, and avoiding law enforcement. His initial story became the point investigators began to pull apart, piece by piece, as every detail in his version required scrutiny. Once he vanished, the investigation turned toward hard evidence. Inside his room, investigators found blood traces and signs of a rushed cleanup, smears on the floor and walls. Maria's personal belongings were scattered in a way that directly contradicted the claim that she had simply walked out. Her car became another critical piece. A luminol test revealed traces of biological material on the seats and in the trunk. While that didn't give the full picture, it strongly pointed to the possibility that a body had been moved. Even with this evidence, investigators still lacked the legal grounds to issue an arrest warrant. No eyewitnesses, no security footage showing a body being carried out. To this day, it's unclear why the accumulation of circumstantial evidence and Germain's suspicious behavior weren't enough to justify immediate arrest. The lack of timely legal restrictions gave him the opportunity to slip away after his initial questioning. This delayed the investigation and revealed just how difficult it is to move forward without direct testimony, especially in a system where transparency from the academy was severely lacking. When the case reached a dead end due to the absence of direct proof, Germain's phone became a key tool. Location data helped map out his movements on the night Maria went missing. One marked location stood out, a mountainous zone called Casagua, just outside Quito. That area had no link to his professional duties, which immediately raised red flags. A tactical search team began combing the area, focusing on places where Germain's phone signal had repeatedly pinged. The first breakthrough came when they found black plastic bags containing Maria's clothing and personal items. That discovery was a clear confirmation that Germain had been in that area after his wife disappeared. What still puzzles me is why he chose such a remote site. That kind of decision rarely happens by accident. Search operations continued. After several more hours, with the help of search dogs and forensic teams, Maria's body was found in a ravine. The location aligned with the timestamps and data from Germain's phone records. Despite the early challenges in the investigation, it was the combination of digital tracking and physical search efforts that ultimately led to her discovery. The public reaction was immediate. In Quito and several other cities, protests broke out, targeting the system's failure to act and the major missteps in the investigation. Maria's funeral drew a large crowd, not just of those who knew her personally, but of people who saw her case as a symbol of how fragile protections for women can be in Ecuador. Finding her body didn't close the case. If anything, it escalated it. Pressure on law enforcement and government institutions intensified. The public demanded answers, and from that point forward, the investigation grew into something much larger than just a single criminal incident. After Maria was found, the investigation widened its scope. One of the first people brought in was Jocelyn Bilko, the cadet with whom Germain had a hidden relationship. She was detained early on because she had seen him shortly before he returned to the academy, had attended the party, and therefore could have known about his movements or intentions. During questioning, her explanations were inconsistent. She confirmed some details, denied others, and raised new suspicions. Later, investigators uncovered messages where she discussed events from that night, drawing even more attention to her role. Still, there was no direct evidence linking Jocelyn to any harm caused to Maria. In the end, she was released, though her conflicting testimony left serious questions, both for the public and Maria's family. Personally, I still don't understand how her version of events was accepted, despite clear gaps in logic. The second person of interest was Alonso Camacho, an acquaintance of Germain's who investigators believed may have helped him after Maria disappeared. His arrest was based on messages sent around the time Germain was moving around, along with a possible connection to items found at the search site. But again, the investigation failed to uncover enough solid proof for a formal charge. Camacho was released, leaving only speculation about what role, if any, he played. Both of these cases highlight how accountability inside the academy was blurred. Informal relationships between cadets and instructors, hidden communications, and fear of consequences led to witness statements that were not just incomplete, but potentially distorted. As a result, investigators were left working in an environment where key individuals may have had crucial information, yet the system failed to guarantee transparency or accountability in their interactions with law enforcement. After Germain was finally taken into custody, he gave his version of what happened, claiming that Maria's death was the result of a conflict that got out of hand. He admitted there had been a struggle, but denied any intent to cause harm. According to him, things escalated unexpectedly, and his actions afterward were driven by fear. But this account sharply clashed with what investigators had already found: evidence of attempts to cover up a crime and relocate a body. At trial, one piece of evidence became crucial: an audio recording Maria had made the night of the incident. In it, parts of the argument could be clearly heard: angry shouting, accusations of betrayal, all of which contradicted Germain's claims of a sudden, unplanned moment. The court also considered other facts: signs of a violent struggle inside the room, discrepancies in his movements that night, and the fact that he remained on the run for months. To me, it's the totality of these undeniable facts that stripped his story of any credibility. In the end, the court found Germain guilty of committing a violent crime and concealing the body, sentencing him to a lengthy prison term. But even with the verdict, many questions were left unanswered. Who helped him after Maria disappeared? Why didn't the academy log any violations that night? And why did multiple potential witnesses keep changing their stories? Germain was sentenced to 35 years behind bars. One of the most emotional moments of the trial came from Maria's mother. She told the court that the sentence doesn't heal the wounds because the system that allowed this tragedy to happen never faced any real consequences. After the sentencing, Maria's family kept pushing for answers the court couldn't provide. Her mother pointed out that Maria's body had been found with minimal decomposition, a detail that raised doubts about the official timeline of her death. That claim sparked widespread public debate and calls to reopen parts of the investigation. The state responded with sweeping reforms. The police academy, where the incident occurred, was shut down. UN committees and national watchdogs were brought in to investigate systemic failures. Their focus quickly turned to training standards and internal oversight within institutions like the one Germain worked for. For Maria's family, the consequences were devastating. Her son Mike lost his mother. The financial strain of searching for her and pursuing legal action forced the family to give up their home. Against this personal tragedy, protests across the country gained momentum, highlighting the rise in gender-based crimes and demanding real protective measures for women. Despite the conviction, many of the case's most critical questions remain unanswered. Was Germain the only one involved? Why did the Academy's leadership escape accountability? And why were some testimonies so incomplete? Though the case may be legally closed, Maria's story continues to live on, in the hearts of her family and in a society that refuses to stop fighting for the full truth.